From 2022, the UK will introduce full border controls. Time we provided tips, tricks, and just how to go about it. Let's go. Hey, so I've moved to the top right corner of the screen so you can see the PowerPoint presentation that I've prepared for you. Hi and welcome. My name is Arnie Milken from Customs Manager, and I'm delighted to show you this series, a countdown to 2022, a daily series of customs and global trade changes that happen in the UK, Great Britain from 2022. Now, today we're going to look at top tips for making full customs declarations. Now, yesterday already, we had a step-by-step look at imports, how to move goods from GB, from the EU into GB using transit. Today, top tips for making customs declaration. Tomorrow, the reverse route, so GB exports to EU, doesn't really change for 2022, hey, but just for good measures. And then on the 30th, we're going to look at PWOW, a pre-notification using IPAFs, postponed VAT accounting, and of course, the rules of origin. And then the final checklist to make sure that you're really ready on the last day of the year. Now, if we start with this topic of today, full customs declaration, the first thing we ought to say is that delayed customs declaration is no more. Well, except if you are in Ireland and you're using Irish ports, that means the Republic of Ireland or Northern Ireland. Now, as you know, in 2021, the delayed customs declaration facilitation was available for non-controlled goods coming from the EU. They were entering Great Britain and for all EU 27 member states. Now this continues for all the Irish ports, and that means that you can enter GB with just your EORI number, provided you have a method of recording all the information about your movement in your own records. And then you follow this up with a supplementary declaration 170 days later. This facilitation is no longer available for all the EU 26 other member states. So therefore, it means that the majority of importers will have to make full customs declaration from 2022. Having said that, how do you do a customs declaration from 2022? Well, there are at least 3 companies that can help you. There is the fast parcel operators, you know who they are, and they can help you move parcels, and quite quickly. Do take care, though, that when you ask them to do that, that you give them the right instruction, meaning who has to pay, what commodity codes, who has to account for the duties, the taxes, etc., and who is going to be importer of record and who's going to be exporter, all of these questions that you determine with the Incoterms, right? If you're using a freight forwarder, they are primarily there to move the freight, as they are called freight forwarders. They can also do customs clearance in quite a few cases. And there are the customs agent and the brokers such as Customs Manager, and they will make sure that the goods clear customs in no time. So there are 7 pieces of information at the very least that you may want to provide to your customs broker that allows them to file the customs declaration in the right and insightful way. So obviously there is your EORI number. Now, you do want to make sure that you are actually importer. If you're not importer, you don't need to give out your EORI number and you don't need to give out your business address. So make sure that when you are asked for your EORI number, you actually only provide it where it's really needed and not just by default. Because once the EORI number is known, customs declaration can be lodged on your behalf, whether you want to or not. So be careful with your EORI number is my suggestion. 2, obviously you need to give some paperwork because we need to make a customs declaration on the basis of what? So if you're the importer, please provide the customs invoice or the pro forma invoice or the normal commercial invoice, some contracts, possibly maybe a packing list. So that allows us to get all the information from the invoice that we need. And of course, all will depend on the Incoterm. So make sure you have clarity on the Incoterms, your responsibility, risks, and costs, and you communicate that to your customs broker so that the right information can be lodged in the right way. You also need to provide a description of the goods that you want to import or export. If you just supply a stock stock unit number or a catalog number, that won't be sufficient. It must be a good enough description to identify the goods. Best, of course, if you have the commodity code. If you don't have the commodity code and you want to know how to determine the commodity code, there's lots of information on customsmanager.org. If you click on guides or resources, there is a guide to classification that has chapter by chapter support and a lot of information, including some quizzes on the expert blog. Origin information is going to be really important to claim preferential duty. So you need to tell us where the product is from, not only where it's consigned from, but also where the origin of the product is for preferential purposes. There might also be a reason to tell us where the product is from because of commercial measures, so that's not so good, anti-dumping duty and the likes, but we'll tell you if that's needed. Also, what you will do with the goods, so if they go into a suspensive regime or whether they are into free circulation. So basically, if you're going to sell or not sell the goods into the country that you are importing. So I'm assuming this is on imports, but of course, you can play that for export as well. Overall, you need to know out of which state the goods come, if you know that, and to which state the goods are going to go, the status of the goods, so to speak. And if you know that the goods are restricted, import controls, export controls, and the likes of it, then you need to have the appropriate licenses. Now, the good thing about a customs manager is, of course, that we can help you with all of that, right? So if it's licenses you need, we'll apply for the license on your behalf. If you don't know the commodity code, then we'll get that for you. It's not that we're restricting our services just for customs declarations. We will help you with everything, which is really, really a great one-stop shop that that many clients appreciate. And if we need something else, we'll work with you and we'll make sure that you can provide that to us before we do anything. Good? Sounds good? Sure. All right. Next, don't forget, for the UK specifically, you need to provide the correct country code based on the ISO code, so 2 digits, GB for UK, DE for Germany, for example. And that would be of the country of origin and the country of dispatch, probably, when you need to complete the customs declaration. Now, please note that there was a recent change. The UK is now requiring the individual country code, not the words EU. So if you used EU as country, that was acceptable, but is now no longer acceptable. And therefore, the relevant member state code, DE, FR, GR, needs to be provided. The EU country code must not be used and is or will be removed from the UK custom system. Now, a particular tip I would love to give to you is the difference between direct and indirect representative. That's really, really important because if we're acting on your behalf, there are two choices you have. Either you can have the agent act as your indirect agent or as your direct agent. And what does that mean? Well, if you hire a freight forwarder and or customs agent, like ourselves, for example, as a direct agent, then you will be like your accountant. Will do the stuff for you, but you are ultimately responsible. You'll be solely liable for keeping the records, for the accuracy of any information you provide on the customs declarations, and any customs duty or import VAT due. If you give clear instructions and then we do not follow them, then that would automatically make us as customs agent liable if there was a deliberate or unreasonable error. So if you informed us to use this EORI number and we used a wrong EORI number, then we would be jointly and severely liable as well. So that's important for you to know because sometimes the customs agent might just reject or might just act in ways that you didn't authorize. And it is good for you to know as importer that automatically then renders the customs agent liable. So if you ask someone to represent you directly, and if you hold an authorization for a special procedure, then you can also declare the goods into inward processing, outward processing, temporary admission, authorized use, of course, customs warehousing. And if you hold an authorization for simplified procedures or entry into the declarant's records, then you can also ask someone, the customs agent, or us, for example, to act on your name. And don't forget, there are simplified declarations as well. So that makes it faster for you to import the goods. And then you follow up with supplement information later on. And for that, you need to meet some conditions. So you need to be established in the UK when you import the goods, so into GB, England, Scotland, and Wales. And then you can ask someone to use their own authorization, so our authorization for simplified declarations, or you can use the ones that you then have. Please note, normally, traditionally, when we follow all of the instructions, that means the importer is directly liable. The direct agent, such as customs manager, will act on your name and on your behalf, but the importer will be liable completely. In other words, the person representing you, for example, Customs Manager Limited, will not be jointly liable. And that means that it is very important that you think about that you give right instructions, including information about your deferment account, whether you would want us to use our deferment account and then charge you for it and bill you through this, or whether you would want to use your own deferment account and consequently provide the necessary information. There's also this concept of indirect representative or indirect customs agent, and that would mean that both the importer and the agent would be jointly equally responsible for making sure that the information is accurate. So if the indirect agent doesn't provide the right information, then the indirect agent will be as liable as the importer and will be jointly and severely liable for any customs duty or import VAT. So then you can also make relevant simplified declarations, but only if the indirect representative is authorized. And that means this indirect representative solution is very attractive for those companies that are not established in the UK, because this is where the indirect representative assumes liability, and as I said, is jointly and severely liable, and therefore HMRC can contact this person in the UK. In short, there's always got to be someone in the UK that is liable for the customs debt and for the accuracy of the information contained within the customs declaration. And indirect representation is attractive where the importer is established outside the customs territory here, the UK. And the same happens then for things like deferment account, AORI numbers and the likes of it. It would need to be a good discussion with indirect representative. We conclude here. There are just a few tips I want to give you as you work with customs brokers, and I do recommend that you check out our on-demand, online, study anywhere, anytime, from any device, broker training on this. And also our expert blog series on direct and indirect representation and agency, because we have a, I think, 5-part series that talks about all the things you need to know about import, indirect and direct representative / agent in more detail. So here are a few lessons from 2021. I'd like to point you to the fact that some freight forwarders and customs clearance agent act upon the order received from their clients, and their clients could be the export freight agent, clearing agent. So in other words, you are not the one giving the order to import clear, but it is the export freight agent who asks the import freight agent, because they have a contract, to customs clear. And that means this import agent may not ask the importer of record for an authorization to clear. Now that's clearly against the spirit and actually against the law. You should always ask the importer for specific authorization before you act on their behalf. So there are some, and this is still the tradition in 2021, that customs clear without an authority to act, and often, therefore, without the importer knowing it. Now that clearly is not right. And that also, and this is the good thing, makes the direct representative / agent automatically jointly and severely liable. And importers do not have to pay any customs duty according to the Customs the Taxation Cross-Border Act 2018, Section 21. So the freight agent / customs agent will have acted without authority to act, and therefore no customs duty is actually due for the importer. And if challenged, if it can be proven that no authority to act was given, then that makes the, as I said, the direct representative even liable. And if you work with us, you can be assured that we will always ask written permission by the importer to act on their behalf. And there is a specific form that you would fill out. And if you don't give that authority to act, then no import declaration should be made. Once you do have this relationship with the freight agent and or the customs broker and your clearing agent, then we recommend that besides issuing instructions, you then complete an audit. And for this audit, you need to have a copy of the customs entry and a copy of the invoice paperwork. So that will allow you to audit the entry for accuracy. And of course, you can ask us to do so. You can also ask the customs, the freight agent or the customs agent for amendments. And this is where, of course, you have identified errors. And of course, there is the opportunity to purchase MSS data to verify that the entries were made the right way. And if you do not hold the paperwork, that is really a good opportunity to double check that. And if you need more information on MSS data, just read it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this was useful, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.